And this change over the course of our lifetime has occurred in several perceptible ways, generally kind of coinciding with the decades to a large degree. In my classes, this is generally how I teach it because it's an easy way of understanding the change. During the 1970s, in most industrial countries, we started to see the rise of cable television, and later satellite television. And the number of channels that people have access to increased dramatically. And forgive me, I've been in town for only about 30 hours right now, and part of that was sleeping because I'm 12 hours off on my body clock from New York right now. But how many TV channels are on the cable system here in Singapore, for instance?
150.
How? I'm sorry?
150.
150. Are you in the cable business, by the way? Yes, okay, I figured that. 150 channels. So they are from 2 channels to 150. And of course, if you have satellite, you have probably even more. And most of those channels nowadays are topical channels. We have so many channels that they're no longer general interest. It could be the History Channel, the Cartoon Channel, the Golf Channel. They're actually channels that have become specialized. In fact, there's cooking channels, but not just that. They're starting to launch Chinese cooking channels, Italian cooking channels. We're starting to get subtopics of subtopics in television. And the amount of information that people can now get in video, not including YouTube, is phenomenal. That's one of the waves of change. The other one, which is actually closer to SPH's business, offset lithography. The development of this technology, which by the way basically means we no longer have to melt lead to make type. We can now do that without actually having to melt metal to do it. Revolutionized the economics of the magazine industry. Because all of a sudden, this technology made it economical to publish topical magazines. Yesterday, in talking with some of the people at SPH in the new media department, I asked them, well, how many topical magazines, or actually magazines of any type, how many titles are on sale in kiosks and newsstands in Singapore? Hundreds, probably. Okay. 4,000? 4,000. All right, well, there's a magnitude I'm off on. And in fact, actually, yesterday, somebody from SPH said, well, we publish hundreds ourselves. You know. So all of a sudden, from 10 to 20 magazines, thousands of topics. If there is a topic you can think of, chances are there's a magazine published on it in the major languages worldwide about that. It's revolutionized how people get information. And as a result, many people who might be, for instance, a golf fan or something, are no longer waiting to read the sports pages of the next morning's newspaper, and they're now watching the golf channel or the tennis channel, if it's tennis or something. Or they're reading these types of topical magazines rather than necessarily the feature pages of the newspapers to a large degree. It has changed how we consume the media. And then, of course, the 1990s, this is an obvious one. The Internet. The public gained access to this system. And actually it was in the summer of 1992 it became open to the public. And in the 18 years since then, there are now 1.7 billion people who have access to the Internet on desktop and personal computers. Now that is 1/5 of humanity in 18 years has access to this system. If there is a topic you can think about, there is a website about it out there. In fact, there's probably several hundred websites out there. Social networks, blogs in addition to that. There's a website you can actually check, and forgive me if I don't give you the URL of it right now, which will tell you how many active websites there are at this moment. And this morning when I checked it, it was 238 million some active .coms, which you have access to. So in terms of the amount of information you've gained access to, not just thousands of magazines, 250 million websites out here. In my country, the Library of Congress, which arguably right now, I think actually it's an established fact, is the largest library in the world, announced last year that there is more information available online at this moment than has ever been published in any format in human history. And that includes cuneiform and scrolls and everything in the past. And it's all accessible on the Internet. And indeed, in terms of video, the same institution, the Library of Congress, has announced that there is more video available online through personal computers or through video-capable mobile phones now than has ever been broadcast in human history. So think of that. from a relative scarcity to having access to all that information. And in our own decade, I don't quite know what to call these, the aughts or the 2000s or what you would call this past decade, we've seen that change to our access become basically broadband access, which has given us the ability to get video and audio as well as text online. And it's certainly changed how we access information. Because before, if you needed access to this wealth of information, you had to plug in a phone line, dial up, monopolize the phone line, and you didn't really use it unless it was very important. But now, with wireless and broadband, it's always on. On that laptop right now, within 20, 30 seconds, I can find out probably 99% of any questions you ask what the information is on that. That's a remarkable change in human history, that we all have access to this. And this change, by the way, is continuing. In this coming decade, I think it's safe to say we're going to see this all go into mobile. In fact, it's certainly happening here in Singapore. You have one of the most advanced societies in terms of mobile. You may not think you have one of the best ones, but you certainly do compared to other countries, believe me. And the devices led by the iPhone, have revolutionized this. Steve Jobs, who actually is a genius at designing products and using technology, his design of the phone was a masterstroke, because these new phones, be they the iPod or the Android type, and by the way, all handset manufacturers worldwide are now building their phones on these models, the all-screen models, with full internet access. These basically are the same things as personal computers. In fact, they're as powerful as personal computers were 4 or 5 years ago. This is increasingly the way that people will consume information online, in the hand, being able to get it wherever they are. Right now, you don't need the laptop or desktop. You who have the phones, and actually I see only 2 people using them right now, have the ability to instantly get that information. So, since there are 4.1 billion people right now who have access to mobile phones, this means that as we start to shift from consuming by desktop and laptop computers to these types of devices, that more than 4 billion people will have access to all of the world's information in the palm of their hand. And excuse me, that's not my phone, but that'd be the equivalent of it. Think of that. If there's been a change that's gone on in the history of media, this is it. This is the major change. It's changed how we consume information. It's changed our access to information. It's changed the business models of information. And it's had changes in terms of culture, politics, and how people connect, quite literally, with each other to a large degree. 4.1 billion people having access to this information. That's 60% of humanity having access to all of the world's information in audio, text, or video, instantly, wherever they are.